Ugh. Well, welcome to our COVID safe training. There is me here, and my name's Murray, and there might be a virtual audience as we kick along, and that's fine. So at Wenty, we need to be COVID safe, and here's a better picture to be thinking about. We would like to go from church in our homes and online to coming back into our building. And this is the training we need to do to comply with all the rules and everything so we can get back to, we can't do that because of the 1.5 metre distancing, but we can get closer to each other, and I think that's going to be better for everyone. So what we're going to do is work through some overall principles that will guide us in being COVID safe, walk through the rules that we have to keep, and then do a walk through, sort of an in-depth, detailed look at what's going to be happening on Sundays and how it's going to be different. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that we need to look at. Fortunately, it's not too long, but there we go, 4 points. This is for all regular members. So the wardens are saying, and I'm a warden, being COVID safe is everybody's responsibility. So we all have a part to play. Some of us will be on rostered roles, more formal roles, but just knowing what to expect and what's going to happen is going to make a big difference come Sunday and as we go back at the end of November as well. There are some resources. There's the playbook, which is available online. There's also the slides that we've got here, which are printable if you would like. Both of these are available online. And if you were here, there are some COVID unsafe printed copies available. Let's get into some actual stuff. Principles. These 4 principles are the things that we do in general to keep COVID safe and fight the COVID virus. Most important one, be healthy. And most importantly, if you are not healthy, don't go out. Stay home. And that's going to be that's a big rule. That's going to apply here at church. It applies pretty much everywhere at the moment. But definitely for church, if you are feeling unwell, do not come. Stay home and watch the live stream. We've got cleaning. There's lots of cleaning. That's what we do with COVID. COVID spreads by, the virus is on a doorknob or something. You open a door, then you rub your eyes and the virus has gone from the door to your fingers to your eyes. So cleaning is the way we kill the virus on all these commonly touched surfaces, and things like doorknobs are the ones that we just don't really click to, I guess. Distancing, we are all familiar with our 1.5 metre social distancing, but under this category as well are the self-quarantine and generally sort of keeping groups of people apart from one another. So part of that for Wenty will be our morning and evening congregations. We'll try and keep them as separate as we can so that if one person gets infected in one, they don't accidentally spread it across to the other group as well. And finally, contact tracing. If someone does get infected, we need to figure out who they've potentially been in contact with so that everyone can get tested. Between these 4 things, we've actually done a pretty good job in Australia of keeping COVID under control, and we've got to do our little bit for these as well here at Wenty. Some of the other principles are, as wardens and as what we're doing here at Wenty, we're going to start conservative. And as we get used to the new sort of COVID safe way of doing things, we'll change and adapt as we kind of acclimatise to the new way of things. That means the first few times it's probably not going to be all that much fun at church, but over time it will get better, and let's face it, it's a lot better than Zoom. And of course, as we know, restrictions may change at any point in time. Governments have been, with very short notice often, either applying lockdowns, as we've seen in Victoria, or lifting restrictions, which we saw last week in New South Wales. Now, as I said, this is not exactly the most exciting piece of content you'll ever watch, but there are some COVID-safe rules to work through. These are courtesy of our government, and look, we have to actually follow them because they are from the government. There are penalties if we are found to not be following them, so say hello to our COVID inspector here. So rules, I've got 6 slides of them, so you know where we're up to. First rule looks quite familiar, doesn't it? The way these are going to work, the dot points are the rules we have to follow, and the little arrows are the things we need to do as members of Wenty Anglican. First dot point, don't come if you're sick. You may have heard that. Seriously, do not come to church if you are unwell. I'm the kind of person who will go somewhere and turn up to work even if I really should be in the emergency ward. We cannot do that. Even if you're the tiniest little bit sick, please stay home, be safe, and keep everyone else safe as well. We have to have conditions of entry, and there are signs around that show that. They're also available on our website, so they're the usual kinds of things you would expect with COVID, and we'll go through them a little bit later. There are some rules we have about maximum capacity, and we've done some maths to figure out that we can have 50 people in the auditorium right here, and we can have 25 people in the hall just up the hill. We get an extra few people because we have staff or officiants, so there's 3 freebies in the auditorium and 1 in the hall as well. Obviously we need to do social distancing, so that applies with the 1.5 metre thing before, during and most importantly after church as well. And we can't share materials around like we normally would, so there won't be any Bibles in the seats, there won't be any handouts as you come in, and there'll be changes to how we do the Lord's Supper so that we're not sort of handling the same things over and over again. Probably the most contentious and annoying rule is we need to discourage mingling. This is part of the distancing thing where we don't want groups of people to kind of overlap, or one person to sort of go through lots of groups of people and potentially become a super spreader. So that means we can't move around after the meeting like we normally would. And it also means that at least early on we're going to be keeping the hall, the church hall, and in particular the children's program as a separate meeting. And that means that we won't have people mixing from in the hall down to the auditorium or back again. And the 10 o'clock and 5 o'clock meetings will also aim to keep separate. Singing. We can't do it. Oh well. Music is okay. So we will be showing some videos, but we can't sing. We need to give an online option, so this is the live streaming. This is what we'll be doing for those who are unable to come physically. And masks are recommended. That's what we are told from the government. So please bring a mask, and bonus points if it's a colourful one, and not like my really boring black mask here. There's lots of cleaning. Cleaning's annoying, but we have to do it. We have to clean after every meeting, and that means we've got to clean all the different rooms we may have been in and anything that we've potentially touched. And that means, that if there are unused rooms that no one's gone in, we don't have to clean them. So we'll be blocking off some of the usual areas just to try and simplify the cleaning. And there's we actually have to clean properly. I love cleaning with a wet rag, and that's about it. Unfortunately, that doesn't kill COVID. We need to use proper disinfectants or alcohol-based cleaners, and I will show you exactly how that works later on. If you are handling some of the nastier stuff, make sure you wear gloves. There'll be checklists around so that we can make sure that we've cleaned the things that we need to clean. For things that can't be cleaned easily, we can put them into quarantine for a period of time to make them COVID safe, and of course there is hand sanitizer all over the place. The last rules, we have to keep a roll. We need to know who's attended church so that we can do contact tracing if needed. So there will be a church roll, and there'll be some separate sheets for visitors. And we need to publish our policies on COVID, so they're all up on our website there at wentyanglican.org.au. That's all the rules. Let's have another look at the picture up there, because that's where we want to get to. We want to see each other again, and to be able to serve each other and enjoy each other's fellowship like we have been in the past. Okay, so COVID Sunday. Let's have a think about what's going to happen when we actually arrive on Sunday. We'll walk through all the little steps that we need to do to get from outside, inside, and eventually through the meeting and back out again. So the first thing, when you arrive, don't forget 10 o'clock and now 5 p.m. Our evening meeting time has changed. So if you turn up at 6 o'clock, you'll probably not see very much. Please only enter via the Pritchard Street main foyer. So the back door that you can come in via Garfield Street, please don't use that one. We need to count everybody, and it's very important we don't accidentally miss someone. Primary age children will go up to the top hall, and they will come in through the gate that goes up to the top hall, so just a little bit further up the hill. High school age youth will stay in the auditorium with the adults. Now, as we walk toward the building, usually there'd be a nice friendly person smiling at you, welcoming you and handing you a piece of paper and saying hello. Well, that person is still there, but now we've got a whole bunch of other things that we need to do. And as you can tell from this list, most of the tricky things that we need to do happen as you enter. All the extra stuff, it's up front rather than sort of later on. So there'll be a lot of stuff just to get in the door. The important thing for all these roles who will be welcoming people, the official government line is if you are attending a place of worship, you are recommended to wear a mask. But we're saying if you're welcoming people, you're probably going to come into contact with everybody, so you have to wear a mask. Let's have a look. Welcomer. You're outside. If you're the welcomer, you need to be welcoming. Unfortunately, because you'll be wearing a mask, no one can see your smile, so you'll need to smile with your eyes and your body language. You also need to remind people about the 1.5 metre rule because we have to keep our social distancing. I'll make sure there's some chalk out there so we can actually mark out some 1.5 metre lines as people come in. Particularly early on, there will be questions about conditions of entry and what's going on and what's changed. So if you're the welcomer, you'll be the first person people see, so you'll need to be vaguely ready about how to explain what the conditions of entry are and how things are different. One thing you won't be doing, though, is giving people anything. There are no church bulletins anymore. Now, here are our conditions of entry. They are reasonably standard for most COVID-safe kinds of things. You can't have any COVID symptoms, no recent travel, we're doing a temperature check, we need to do contact tracing, and there are maximum numbers. So the next slide, I'm not sure how visible it will be on the live stream, probably not that visible, but oh well. You'll have to check out the details in the playbook or on the signage. The key thing is no COVID symptoms in the last 2 weeks. Or you have to come back with a negative COVID test. The same thing with the overseas travel, 2 weeks, and then you're allowed to come in. And it's only to restricted areas. So there's been a lot of talk over the last couple of weeks about opening up borders between states in Australia and even across to New Zealand. So countries that have opened borders up won't apply to this travel rule. Temperature is 38 degrees, that's what we consider a fever. And what's that last one? Contact tracing is you need to give a name and either a phone number or an email. So a name and a way of contacting you. Those are our conditions of entry. If you are then the temperature screener, and for the first week, the temperature screener and the welcomer will be the same person. You need to check people's temperatures with this little gadget here. It's pretty straightforward. There's a great big button on it to turn it on, and then hopefully that will beep loud enough. Comes up with a smiling face there. You point it at someone's forehead. You don't have to touch them. Press the big button again, and I am 36.5 degrees, so I can come in. The thing to remember is if someone does actually appear to have a fever, if they're over 38 degrees, give them a second chance, particularly if it looks like they've just run a marathon or gotten off a bike and are really sweaty. Let them sit down for a moment, catch their breath, and try again. There's a picture of our thermometer. Hurrah. Oh, we finally actually got in the door now. Okay, we're in the foyer. What happens next? Well, we need to record attendance. So there will be a person in the foyer with a church roll, and that will be for regulars. For visitors, we'll have contact tracing sheets, which are little A5 pages, which you can record details on there. We want the attendance recorder to ask everybody a question. Do you have any COVID symptoms? This will feel a little bit like an election. You rock up and you give your name, and then they say, have you voted already? And you go, no. Same thing here. We want everyone to just think a little bit. Do you have any COVID symptoms? No is the correct answer. The next question, have you returned from overseas or interstate? Again, that one use your judgment on. If there are regulars coming in and we've seen them several times through the week, you can let that one slide. But if there's a visitor, you've never seen them before, that's worth putting the question to them, have you returned from overseas or interstate? Once you've marked them off either the roll, or if they're a visitor, they've filled out their sheet, you can put that visitor's sheet in some green folders, and those folders we will put in the safe for privacy reasons, and no one will probably ever look at these unless we need to do contact tracing. Once you've done all that, you can direct people to the ushers, who we'll get to shortly. The last person in the foyer, though, is the counter. It is very, very important that we do not exceed our 50-person plus 3 capacity in the auditorium. So please either use a smartphone app or a piece of paper, one or the other, to count people who come in. It's important to count children. Children count under the rules, and the line we're going to draw is once a child can walk, they need to be counted. So if there's a baby who can't walk, you don't need to count the baby. Obviously, you'll need to count parents. Please don't forget to count yourselves. So there are other people who will be welcoming. There'll be people inside, David and so on as well. Please count everybody. And you need to remember that people may come late, and we need to have someone near the door even during the meeting so that we get all those latecomers. And of course, if we do get to capacity, we actually need to close and lock the door so that we don't have any extra people dribbling in. These are some photos that are slightly lighter than some of the material we've been looking at, and some examples of children not to count because these children, they can't walk. On the other hand, these children are slightly older. They may be the same children, but these particular ones, they need to count because they can walk. Okay, we've come in through the door, we've had our name marked off, we've come into the auditorium. What is happening now? Ushers. We're going to have people who will usher you from the foyer into a seat. And their role, of course, is to escort people in. They need to fill from the front to the back. I know that's, someone's going to have to sit in the front row, yes. If we get to capacity, every seat is going to be full front to back. So we're going to fill from the front to the back. Part of that is so that if we don't fill all the way to the back, there are some seats we don't have to clean. How good is that? You need to ensure the distancing rules are applied. Now, the seats have been moved so that from front to back, we've got 1.5 metre distancing okay, but the role of the ushers in particular will be making sure the side-to-side distancing is 1.5 metres. Households can sit together. The social distancing rules don't apply to people who live under the same roof. And one thing that ushers very much will need to remind people is once you're seated, you can't move around. Here's a diagram of what different seating arrangements look like. So basically, from side to side, if you have three people from different households, you can fit 3 people on one seat. Anything more than single people, though, as soon as you've got a household with 2 people or 3 people or more, you've really only going to be able to do 1 on each end of the seats. And obviously, once you get to sort of 5, 6 people in a family, that's going to be 1 seat for that whole family. This will be printed out and available, so if you're ushering, you can refer to it, but generally you've got to make sure the 1.5 metres applies. Sometimes there'll be people who are wider or thinner than others, so this is a guide rather than a rule. Finally, the last role that's in play are the wardens or concierge. That's me. So myself, Murray, Brian and Ken are wardens, and we'll be acting as sweepers. That is, we get to pick up pieces when things go wrong. So if you're struggling, or if you need some assistance, or if you need rescuing, yell out for a warden. 2 what-if questions before we finish this little bit. What happens if someone fails the conditions of entry? That is, we do their temperature check and it turns out that they've got a burning fever. Unfortunately, we've got to ask them to leave. That's all there is to it. If you've got a fever, you can't come in. That's the whole point of COVID-safe rules. We can, of course, tell them that they can watch the live stream from the comfort of their own home. And we can also, and we should also, tell them to get tested and to self-isolate, because basically our COVID-safe rules, you need to self-isolate if you've got a fever or if you've recently arrived from overseas. A more complicated what if someone is non-compliant? That is, someone turns up with a fever and a t-shirt that says, "I have COVID," and doesn't want to give their contact tracing details, and they've just arrived off an aeroplane. What do you do? Now, this is important because although we hope it won't happen, it has happened at other churches. So we need to think about this one. Simple thing is, start with the basics, explain to the person, try and talk to them and figure out what it is that they might have a problem with. Maybe they don't want to give their contact tracing details because they're worried about their privacy. Well, we've got a privacy policy, we've got a folder that you can put it in, so even the ushers and the roll checker won't see those details once they're in the folder. Try and reassure them. Now, if they're still wanting to come in, even though they shouldn't, we have to warn them. And there's 2 sides to this. The one I've got up here is that you're risking the future of church meetings. So if someone non-compliant comes in and we get caught, one of the penalties could be that we are told, well, you can't do church anymore. The more serious risk, of course, is that they may actually have COVID and they may end up spreading it. So there are risks, and we need to actually warn people this could actually have consequences. It's good to isolate them, so if you can, into the front parish room. That room is usually marked authorised only, but it's a fantastic place that there won't be people, and someone who's causing a little bit of trouble can go in there and be isolated from the rest of us. And of course, this is where the warden comes in. You can yell out and ask to be rescued, and it becomes my problem. Ultimately, we will end up calling the police if someone is desperately wanting to come inside when they shouldn't. They are technically in breach of the rules, so we need to inform the police of that. But one thing we will not be doing is physically restraining them. If they push their way in, we will let them in and we'll do our best to isolate them somewhere, but we will not physically stop them coming in. Whew. Okay. That's a whole lot of information, but we've come in, we've managed to get in through the door, we've been welcomed, we've had our temperature checked, we've done the contact tracing thing with the attendants, we've been counted, and we're in a seat. Here's a slide that has nothing whatsoever to do with COVID safety. It's a slide from last year. Around this time last year, we were celebrating our 100th year anniversary of gospel ministry here at Wenty. And it's just there to remind us that, well, COVID wasn't here at one point in time, and it will eventually disappear and we will get back to normal. It's also a spot where I'm going to take a short break. All right, we're into our Sunday meeting, into our sort of formal part of the meeting, and, well, what's going to happen? It's not too different. This bit's not so complicated. We can't sing, that's against the rules, but we can watch videos. So there will be music, but please don't sing. We need to discourage mingling, and that means during the meeting we won't be mixing around. Now, generally we don't do a lot of that, so it shouldn't be too much different. But if you do need any assistance or a glass of water or something like that, the ushers are able to help. They can move around. Masks are recommended, as we've already said, and there are no Bibles in the seats or handouts, so please bring your own Bible or device. And a reminder that we're using the 2011 NIVs. One slightly complicated thing is if you're speaking up front. Please set an example with your mask. That is, when you walk up to the front, have your mask on and take it off before you're speaking so that you can be seen to be following the rules. Try to avoid touching the lectern. We'll see how that goes. Obviously, it's a shared thing that, potentially that's some way that COVID could be spread amongst us. So try and avoid touching it. We'll be cleaning it after each meeting, but obviously there'll be several people who have touched it during the meeting. Afterwards, okay, after the meeting, what happens? This is where we get to the real annoying bit. Discourage mingling. There's a lot going on in that word there, mingling. It's complicated. There's a big discussion about it on the Sydney Anglican's website. But for us at Wenty, first up, we're going to stay socially distant in our assigned seats. So we're not going to move around. We're just going to stay where we are. You can stand up. You can talk with people around you, but don't mingle, don't move around and find different people to talk to. Just where you are, wherever you've ended up, and whoever's ended up around you, have a chat. It's a great way to meet new people and to encourage each other in the Lord. Once again, only the ushers will be moving around, so if you do need any assistance, please talk to the ushers. There won't be refreshments like tea or coffee or nibblies or anything like that, so there isn't a huge reason to go out to the courtyard. And If you're feeling like this is really painful and really cold, it is. This point is the big one that the wardens and David, we puzzled over for quite a while in terms of what we would do. And if it wasn't for this, we probably would have gone back sooner to face-to-face meetings. And look, there are other options. This is, as I said, we'll be starting conservative. This is quite a conservative start to mingling. There are other options which we'll look at in the future. If you do feel like mingling, just remember this gentleman, our COVID inspector. He can walk in and we can get in trouble if we are mingling. Now, after the meeting, when you decide, okay, it's time to head home, please don't decide, oh, I'm going to go home, so I'll walk 3 seats back and join up another conversation. That's not leaving the building, that is mingling. When you decide to leave, please. Parents, don't forget to pick children up, and that means you need to head out, leave the auditorium, go up to the gate and pick up your children. It's going to be like school drop off and pick up where you can't really go inside the school grounds. After a little while, the meeting leader will come up and ask us to leave. Now, the reason for that is a courtesy to people who will be cleaning and to kids leaders. So we need to do a whole bunch of cleaning, which will make everything take that much longer. And there are kids leaders stuck up there in a separate meeting, which we're not really allowed to go up to. So we need to show them both courtesy so that we're not going to be stuck around for hours and hours. The meeting leader will come up and do that by saying, we're going to start cleaning in a few minutes. Now is an opportunity to head home if you don't want to clean, otherwise stay back and assist. And of course, we've got to stay with the 1.5 metres as we're heading out. Please do not form a rugby scrum on the way out. That is not mingling, and it's definitely not social distancing. Now, I do want to talk about this mingling thing for a bit longer, because at church, mingling is what we do. We want to talk to visitors who have arrived, who we would like to welcome to our church. We would like to talk to various other people who we might not have seen, have a chat. We like to show hospitality to them, encourage people in the Lord, and think through the things that we've heard during the church meeting. And mingling is how we do all those things. We go to different people and talk. So how is this going to work during COVID? Spontaneous private gatherings is the solution. We're allowed, under the COVID rules, to have up to 20 people into our homes, or to go to cafes or to parks. Now, I know that many of us, in fact, I think pretty much all of us, will be doing those things to some extent or another. The key thing, though, is that church can't be seen and can't actually be organising this. Because if we organise the whole 50 people who turn up to go to a couple of people's homes and someone ends up with COVID in one of those homes for some reason, well, was that a real private gathering, or did we just basically pick church up and move it to a different place? Well, it's a bit of a grey area, but as a warden, I don't really want to find out if it's going to be in the thumbs up or thumbs down category. So we won't be doing rosters or anything like that. But by all means, you may organise private gatherings amongst yourselves. We know you'll be doing it, so the wardens say, please be safe, please follow the rules, please be conservative, please don't have 20 people into your one-bedroom studio apartment, and remember that outdoors is lower risk, so assuming it's not cold and rainy like it is at the moment, a picnic in the park will be a great idea. Cleaning. After people have left, people who are on cleaning or other regular members who have stayed behind will be doing gleaning. We need to do it after every meeting, so that will be after our Sunday meetings. If you happen to be running a growth group or playtime or something else during the week on church property, you need to clean afterwards as well. And like I said, the meeting leader will give some warning from the front when that's going to start happening soon. What do you clean? The rules say we've got to clean anything that is regularly touched. And there's a long list of things that potentially could be touched. Chairs, tables, pens, desks, the money box at the back, doorknobs and cupboard handles. There's all kinds of things. There will be some checklists. In fact, I've got them right down here. They are printed, probably a good idea. So toilets will be cleaned same as they usually are. But for everything else, we've got two options. Glen 20 is the first. There's a whole line of bottles, cans of Glen 20 sitting right up there. And it's pretty simple. We can use them on any hard surface, which covers off a very large number of things that we'll need to clean. Shake it up, spray, until you can see that the surface is wet, and then let it air dry. Alcohol. Now, when I say you've got to allow it to air dry, that means you're not allowed to touch that bit until it's actually air dry. It takes a little while to actually kill COVID. Please do not use this on electronic equipment or electrical equipment unless you want to purchase us new equipment. The other way you can clean is by quarantining things. So this is good for fiddly items, for electronics, or for toys that might be used up in creche. And basically you just put the items aside for 4 days. That means 96 hours. And the key to this is you must label things. We've got some little COVID quarantine slips here that you can write on, and there's just a spot for the name of the item, when it was used, and when it will be safe. Pretty straightforward. You must label it though, because otherwise someone will quarantine it into a cupboard, and then the next day someone will go, well, it must be clean, it was in the cupboard. That didn't work. And here's the big question: who can clean? Given the complexity of cleaning in terms of using Glen 20, anybody who's been trained may clean. However, we are going to have people who are responsible to make sure that things are actually cleaned. So the foyer area is the responsibility of the attendance recorder. Kitchens and toilets will be for other people who are on welcoming roles. In here in the auditorium, ushers are responsible, and any other areas, that's the warden's responsibility. This is just to make sure that the larger areas in particular are actually completed. And like I said, because anyone who is capable of using Glen 20 can do cleaning, it's not like these people have to do the cleaning themselves. They can rope in some friends. That is our Sunday meeting from one end to the other. And yes, it's gone for a while. We've got our other and sundry, so let's quickly go through these. Signage, there's lots of signage around. Some of it will be the green government-issued stuff. Others will be things that we've created for Wenty. The key is that there are some authorised only rooms and some by request rooms. Those are so that we can reduce the cleaning. Please obey the signs. They're not just there to be pretty, they are there to actually keep us safe. We'll spend a little bit of time on the children and top hall subject. We've got to remember that they are an independent meeting for COVID purposes, so there's not allowed to be mixing between the hall and the auditorium, and that means parents will need to do a pick up and drop off at the gate, and there'll be the leaders there will need to do their own sign-ins and temperature checks and so on, just like we'll be doing down here in the auditorium. Now, parents will sometimes, particularly parents of younger children, would like to go up with their children to the top hall for a period of time, and sometimes they'll go up for 20 minutes and then come back down. You've got to choose. Parents can either go up with their kids to the top hall and they need to stay there for the duration of the meeting, or they can come down to the auditorium and stay here. Please don't mix between the two. Now, obviously, we'll be making exceptions for toilets and for emergencies, so if a child needs to go to the toilet, we're not going to say, no, you can't do that. If a child is in distress or gets hurt, yes, they can come down or the parent can go up. But if emergencies do happen, we don't want people jumping backwards and forwards again, so either go up and stay up, or the child comes down to the auditorium and stays down. Children don't have to keep the 1.5 metre rule, leaders do. Creche, we don't always have creche age, preschool age children, so creche leaders we recommend to stay near the gate and don't actually sign in for the hall until it's actually required. Parents, please remember your kids. Please remember the leaders and say thank you to them, because they are up there all by themselves and they probably want to be rescued after looking after your small monsters for a while. Please don't be late either. And a message for the children's leaders: you still need to have 2 adults present at any time within a room. Our usual professional standards still apply during COVID. Masks, we've talked about several times. They're required for the welcoming and ushering roles, recommended for everyone else, and while you're up the front, you don't need to wear them. Kitchen and food is actually rather straightforward. We're not having food or refreshments, so there we go. We do have a small kitchen though, so for social distancing, maximum of 2 people in the kitchen. It is one of the authorised only rooms, so if an usher needs to get water, that's okay, but really you shouldn't be going in there. And yeah, like I said, the ushers can bring water out to you. The sound desk up the back, again, maximum of 2 people there. Gloves and masks are required. Gloves because we can't clean the computers with Glen 20, and masks because there's not 1.5 metres there, so the mask is your safety mechanism. Don't clean the equipment with Glen 20. I think I've said that about 5 times now. And we won't be doing MP3 recordings anymore. We'll be doing a live stream, just like we're doing right now. Live streaming is the option. If you can't physically attend, it will be via YouTube. So you can go to our YouTube channel, which is linked from our website or from Facebook as well. And we won't be having Zoom after church anymore, because we'll actually be able to see each other in person. And I'm sure many of us will not miss that at all. In terms of money, the money box up the back obviously wasn't a thing that could be used while you weren't allowed on our property. So we're still running with the line of we prefer EFT, but we will accept cash in the money box at the back of our auditorium. That will need to be counted by a warden plus someone else, and the warden will then put that into the safe as usual. The warden's vestry, we really only want the wardens going in there to simplify cleaning. Any other groups who would like to use our church property, that's fine. So English classes, playtime and so on, you do need to have your own COVID-safe plan though, and it needs to be approved by the wardens. So see one of the wardens and we can help you out there. Hopefully after this training, most of what you need you will know already and the kinds of things you'll need to do. A big hint from the wardens, outdoors is lower risk. So if you can structure your things so that they are outside, that's fantastic. The very last thing we need to talk about, what happens if there is someone with COVID who comes into one of our meetings. If you find out, say on Monday, that you are actually COVID positive and you are at church on Sunday, first thing you need to do is tell David and the wardens. There are processes and plans in place by the Anglican diocese for what we need to do if this happens, and we will be the ones who have to put that into place. So please tell David or Brian or Ken or myself, and we will put that into practice. We really don't want to do this, but the plan is there if something happens. And of course, if you do find you're COVID positive, you need to self-isolate, and people who were at that meeting will need to self-isolate and get tested. We've finished finally. We've looked at our overarching principles, the rules we need to follow. We've done the detailed walkthrough and all the miscellaneous things. So we're COVID safe. Hurrah! If you have any questions, please send them through to the wardens. We've completed our face-to-face training, so there's some reference material if you would like some more details on our so that's available on our website. There's useful information on YouthWorks website, on Sydney Anglicans, and also the New South Wales Government. Hurrah! We have finished. This was not the most exciting material to prepare or to present, and I'm assuming it's not the most engaging material to watch, but thank you for your time, and we do ask and pray that all people who come to church at Wenty will be COVID safe, and that we'll be able to get back to face-to-face meeting. Thank you.